Okay, hello, welcome to today's lecture. We are on lecture 3. We're done with chapter 1. Chapter 1 is done. We are on chapter 2. So you can find the notes on Canvas. We're going to start from very first page, page 1. Okay, perfect. So what we learned so far? We learned about statistics. What is statistics? Statistics is a branch of math. It includes some steps. The very first step is to ask a question. We ask a question in chapter 1. It can be any question. What's the average SAT scores? What's the average salary? And so on. Then we target the population, and from that population, we take some samples. Collect data. So we learned how to collect data to make sure that we don't have a biased sample. Then our goal is to visualize the data. Chapter 2 is mainly focused on visualizing the data. Chapter 2. Okay, how do we visualize data? There are different methods in visualizing the data. There are many different methods to visualize the data. Okay. The very first one, the very first method is to use a compact table that we call frequency table. We can form a compact table, which we call frequency table. Okay, we also can use charts, histograms, dot plots, bar chart, pie chart to visualize the data. Dot plots, bar charts, histogram, pie chart, and so.
Excuse me, I want to interrupt you, and I just wonder what is the chapter 1?
Very well. So what we're going to do, first we're going to talk about this nice compact table that we call frequency table. So let me write down the guidelines how to actually construct a frequency table. Then we go over one example together. We are still on page 1. So to construct a frequency table, first of all, you need to find all of your classes. First, decide how many classes or beans you want to have. Statisticians usually select a number between 5 to 20. So the number of classes is between 5 and 20, and you can select 5 or 20 as well. This is your very first step. Then calculate the class width. Find class width. To find class width, you have to do a little bit of algebra. You have to form a fraction. On top of the fraction, you need to identify your maximum value. You need to identify your minimum value, subtract it. Divided by the number that you decided to have in step 1. The number of classes. This is called the class width. 3, start counting all values in each class. We denote it by frequency or F. Frequency is nothing but the count of the data in your collection. We're going to continue to other steps, but these are the main steps that you have to follow. So we're going to go over one example, form these, calculate these, and then we move forward to add more information to our table. Let us take a look at our very first example in the note. We are on page 2 of our note, constructing a frequency distribution from a data set. The data set lists the prices in dollars of 30 portable global positioning system GPS navigators. Construct a frequency distribution that has 7 classes. So note that in this example, the number of classes it's given, it is 7. Well, let us list these numbers and try to form and construct the frequency table. Okay, this is my example. I have these numbers. I have 128. I have 100. I have 180. I have 150. I have 200, 90, 340. I have 105. I have 85 and 270. This is my first row. Second row, I have 200. Then I have 65. Next, 230. Next, 150. Next, another 150. Then I have 120. I have 130. I have 80, 230, and I have 200. This is my second row. My last row has these numbers: 110, 126, 170, 132, 140, 112, 90, 340, 170, and 190. And the question says, we want you to have 7 classes with 7 classes. So what's the meaning of that? It means that my very first step has already been answered. It is 7. Now I need to find the class width. The class width has a formula. So the number of classes is equal to 7. My class width is equal to, I have a numerator, I have a denominator. On my numerator, I need to find the maximum value and the minimum value and subtract. So what's the maximum value in this collection? What's the maximum number? Is it 340? Do I have any other number larger than 340? Do you see any other number?
Is the maximum?
Yes.
The 340.
Yeah, 340.
340. Okay, perfect. 340. What's the minimum value? Minimum value.
80?
Maybe 65.
Oh no, 65.
Yeah, we have to, just look for the whole thing. 65. What goes on the denominator? The number of classes, which is 7. Okay. So let's do the calculation here. What goes on the numerator? What is your calculation?
We can't see.
What is the subtraction for you?
275.
275, thank you. 275 divided by 7, what do you get?
39.9.
38.
38, 39. So it's 39 point.
Huh? Really?
39 point
29.
9.
9. 39.9.
Like
39.29.
29. Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do, we're going to either round it up or down. It doesn't matter. That's totally up to you. I'm going to round it up to 40. So round it up to.
Professor, I can't see the work.
Very well. So you're done with 1, you're done with 2. Now 3. For 3, we are actually constructing the table itself. Now construct the table. You have a table, it has some columns, it has some rows. So here, you can form your very first column by writing classes here. Your second column is going to be just frequency or count. Okay. So what is our first class? Our first class starts at the minimum value. Our minimum value was 65, so 65 goes here. We need to use our class width to construct the second row. What I'm going to do, I'm going to add 40 to 65 to construct the second class. So 65 plus 40, it's going to be 105. Here, 105. So I added my 40 here. I'm going to add 40 to 105 to construct the third class. Remember that you're going to have 7 classes. So I have 145. I'm going to add 40 to it to construct the next class. Plus 40, 185. Next class, so far I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 3 more classes. I add 40 to it. And I get 225. Next class, 225 plus 40. It's going to be 265. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, another class. By adding 40 to it, again, guys, 40 came from class width. Plus 40, I get 305. These numbers are called the lower limit of the class. Lower limits. The figures are going to see lower limits. So I expect you to ask, hey, it starts with a number, but it doesn't stop by any number. What is the ending number for this class? So 65 to 104. So see the difference between these two? This is my first class. It includes all numbers starting at 65, stopping at 104. Let us find them. So 104 plus 40, 144. 144 plus 40, 184. 184 plus 40, 224. Then next class, 264. Next class, 304, and 304 plus 40, 344. We have 7 classes. Our next step is to count the number of values in each class. So, how many data do we have in the first class? It starts from 65 and it stops at 104. Do I have any 65? Yes. Do I have any 66? No. Do I have any 67? You see any 67? I don't see any 67. 68? 69? Do I have any 70s here? I don't see any 70s. How about 80s? Oh, well, I see 85. Do I have any other 80s here? Yes, I have an 80. 80 here, very well. So I'm done with 80s. What about 90s? 1 90s here. What else? Any other 90s? Another 90s here. Well, I'm done with 90s. So know that my last number is 104. So I have to count all the numbers up to 104 and it is included. Do I have any 100? Yes. 101? Do I see any 101? No. 102? No. 103? I don't see any. 104? I don't see any. So how many I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the frequency of first class is 6. Now let us find all the numbers between 105 and 144. Okay. 105. Do I have any 106, guys? 107, 108, 109. Okay, I have 110. I have 112. Okay, perfect. What else do I have? I have to count up to 144. Okay, perfect. I have 128. I have, let's see, I have 120 here. I have 130 here. What else do I have? I have 126 here. Then 132, of course. 140, yes. That's it? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So the frequency of the second class is 9. Make sense for everyone? Okay, guys, what's the frequency for the third class?
6.
6. Frequency for
4.
4. Thank you. Frequency for this class?
2.
2. Thank you. This class 6.
1.
1. And last class?
2.
2. Okay. Thank you very much. So what we can do here? Let me add this up. I have 6 plus 9, which is 15. Then I have 10, 25, and I have 30. So the sum is equal to 30. Now take a look at this. How many data I had in my collection? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I have 3 rows, 3 times 10. I have 30 numbers in this collection. So it means that my frequency and count there you go. So we're done with the first 3 steps to form the very first 2 columns of our frequency table. Now, what's the use of it? The use of this table is to help us graph a histogram. Perfect. So before graphing the histogram for you, I'm going to just move this table to the other side. This is our example. And now that you know how to construct your table, the frequency table is going to be here. We have classes, and we have our counts, frequencies. So instead of writing frequency, I'm going to just use F to represent the frequency. As I mentioned before, we're going to just move on to the next one, but not now. So my first class is 65 to 104. I have 105. to 144. The frequency of the first class is 6. Then I have 9, 145 to 184. It is 6. Then I have 185 to 224 with frequency 4. Then 225. I have it to 264 with frequency 2. 265 to 304, which is 1. And then I have my last class, which is 305 to 344 with frequency equals to 2. And note that the sum is 30. Okay. Now we use our frequency table to graph a histogram. Frequency table to graph a histogram. So one note for you, when you have numerical data, you're using a histogram, not a bar chart. We're going to talk about those, but note that numbers, numerical data, and a histogram. So how do we create a histogram? To create your histogram, you need a horizontal axis. On this horizontal axis, you're going to list all of your classes. On the vertical axis, however, you have your frequencies. F or frequency. So you're going to list all lower limits of your classes on this axis. So the very first one is 65. Then you have 105. Then you have 145. Then you have 185. Then you have 225. Then you have 265. So I need more space. 265, then you have 305, and the final one is the end one, which is 344. So classes. Okay, so the frequencies are 6, 9, 6, 4, 2, 1. What's the maximum frequency? The maximum frequency is equal to 9. So we're going to scale it up to 10. Very well. My first class has frequency equal to 6. What's the meaning of that? It means that I'm going to have a bar which stops at 6. So 65 for scaling. So first class, 65 to 105 stops at 6. The second class has frequency 9, so my bar stops at 9. Then my third class has frequency 6, so it's going to be the same height as the first bar. Then I have frequency 4 for the fourth class. It's going to stop here. My next class has frequency 2, so it's going to stop here. Then my sixth class has frequency 1, so it's going to be here. And finally, I have a class with frequency 2, which is going to be. This is called a histogram with 7 classes. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 classes. Well, we can add more information to our frequency table. We can find the midpoint or middle point of each class. Also, use those numbers as representative of each class. So, midpoint. So to find the midpoint of a class, we're going to take the lower limit and upper limit of each class, add them together, divide it by 2. Midpoint, lower limit, plus upper limit, divided by 2. Okay, the lower limit of the first class is 65. 65. The upper limit of the first class is 104 divided by 2. Again, you have to do a little bit of algebra. For the second class, you have 105 plus 144 divided by 2. For the third class, you have 145 plus 184 divided by 2. Next class, 185 plus 224 divided by 2. Then for this class, you have 225 plus 264 divided by 2. We have 265 plus 304 divided by 2. And finally, we have 305 plus 344 divided by 2. Okay, take your time, find the midpoints for me. Okay, what's the midpoint for the first class? It is
84.5.
84.5. Thank you so much. So where is that? If you look at your histogram here, you can use representative like a midpoint to represent the first class, 84.5. What's the midpoint of the second class?
124.5.
0.5, thank you. So the representative of the second class is 124.5. So let me write it here, 84.5, 124.5. And note that here, what do we have here? We added 40 to the first midpoint to get to the second midpoint. So if you add 40 to the second midpoint, you get to the third midpoint and so on. So this one is going to be 164.5. Then you're going to have 204.5, 244.5, 284.5. And if you add 40 here, 324.5. So these are our representatives of each class. Then for this class,
Is like the frequency 40.
there we go. So 84.5, then 324.5. So these are the representative of each class. Okay. We can also add relative frequency information to our table. And instead of having a frequency histogram, we can construct a relative frequency histogram. So what's the formula for it? First of all, we need a new column, relative frequency. How do you find relative frequency? Relative frequency is the frequency of each class divided by the total number of values in your collection. So 6 divided by 30. 9 divided by 30. 6 divided by 30. 4 divided by 30. 2 divided by 30. 1 divided by 30. 2 divided by 30. Relative frequency can be written in decimal or percentage. What is 6 divided by 30? 0.2 or 20%. So let me move this a little bit here so I have enough space for the percent. Or 20%. How about 9 divided by 30? 9 divided by 30, it gives you 0.3 or 30%. 6 divided by 3, again you have 20%. Then you have 4 divided by 3, which is, let me see, 13%. So you get 0.13 or 13%. And 2 divided by 30, do we have 2 divided by 30? No, we don't have. So it's going to be 7%. It is 0.07 or 7%. Then you have 1 divided by 30, which is 3%. Then again, you have 2 divided by 30, which is equal to 0.07 or 7% relative frequency. So what's the use of that? First of all, you can check each class and the frequency of each class relative to the rest of the data that you have. The number of data in your first class, the frequency, relative frequency is 20%. So it means that 20% of the collection of your data is in the first class. 30% of the collection of your data, whatever it is in the second class, and so on.
The total is
Now that we have a new column, we're going to construct a new graph, and we call it relative frequency histogram. Now we use our relative frequency to construct a relative frequency histogram. On the horizontal axis, you get your classes, or you can use the representative midpoint for each class. On the vertical axis, however, you're going to use relative frequency. You can denote it by RF. Relative frequency. Okay, so my first class, my second class, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Again, as I told you, I'm going to use midpoints as representatives, so why not? So the first class midpoint is 84.5. The second class is 124.5, 164.5. Then you have next class 204.5. This class has 244.5. Then we have 284.5. Then your last class is 324.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So relative frequencies. You look at the percentages. What's the maximum percentage that you have? The maximum percentage is 30%. So let us scale it to 30%. Here you have 15%. Now let us start. The first class has relative frequency 20%. Very well, 20%. So 20%, the bar stops at here. The second one, 30%. So the maximum relative frequency, it's going to be here, 30%. Then your third class, 20%, 20%. Then they have 13%, which is going to be just a little lower down here. Next one, so this is 13%. Let's write down the percentage to make sure we are on the right track. Then we have 7%. 7% is roughly here. Then you have 3%. Then you have 7%. Very well. This is your relative frequency histogram.